Most gods are well known in the Fear and Hunger universe, and people have thousands of videos on gods that are not well known in the universe. I mean, look at this clown in his overly generic video on the Sulfur God. What an idiot. Along with a bunch of others creating videos on the Sulfur God, Logic, and the Yellow King, and everything else, there's still one god that I don't see a lot of people talk about. Almost fittingly so, because even in-game, this god is described as the god of the lost and the forgotten. Fittingly, no one talks about this god, as it is now almost a forgotten deity in the Fear and Hunger universe and in its fandom. We are, of course, talking about the God of the Depths.
$19 Fortnite card. Who wants it?
God of the Depths is one of the old gods, along with Sylvian, Rare, Gro-Goroth, and Venushka. The God of the Depths is the god of darkness, insects, birds, and the lost and forgotten of the world. So fittingly, when we first hear about the god in the first Fear and Hunger game, which takes place in 1590, the god is almost completely forgotten by the world, only worshipped by insects and cave dwellers at this point. However, according to the description for the Leechmonger ring in Fear and Hunger 2, there are some mages alive in the first Fear and Hunger called the Hermit Mages of the South, who still worship the god around 1590, who can infuse rings with the power of leeches that give health back when hurting other creatures. However, the most prominent worshipper of the god is the Cockroach King in the first Fear and Hunger game. However, you won't even be able to talk to him unless you have the Mastery over Insect skill from the God of the Depths skill tree. Talking to the Cockroach King will grant you the dialogue that he is a follower of the God of the Depths. If you bow to him, he will tell you to kill the Butterfly right above him, who, by the way, is just minding his own business. Killing the Butterfly will grant you favor with the Cockroach King and by extension the God of the Depths, which is one of the only ways to grant favor with him. If you are not playing as Enki, he will also tell you to kill Enki. And not that this is canon, but in an older version, you used to be able to sacrifice other party members to gain favor with the God of the Depths. However, once again, that is cut content and non-canon. However, like the Cockroach King, the God of the Depths has even more followers. Mostly in Fear and Hunger 1, because, as we'll discuss, the God of the Depths isn't really around in Fear and Hunger 2. At least not in the way we know here. Anyway, the creatures that follow the God of the Depths are the Cockroach Kings, Scarabs, the Crow Mauler, the Snatcher, the Mumblers, and perhaps even the Butterfly. But now that we know what the God of the Depths is about, let's talk about the timeline of them. Also, the God of the Depths is mentioned having both male and female pronouns, so I'm just going to keep saying them. Let's talk about the timeline of the God of the Depths. Like all old gods, the God of the Depths has always been around. There was never a beginning of these old gods, they always just were there. Old gods are more like forces of nature rather than gods in this universe. It would be like the concept of gravity being a god. Gravity has always existed, it was never really born, it always just was. We don't know a whole lot about the gods before the year 1590 in the series, as that's when the first game happens. Obviously, in the lore, they have tons of lore and tons of stuff that happened in-universe, we just haven't been told about it. And it doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant. Because like I said, they've always been around and they've always been exerting their power. But it would be like trying to talk about all the stories where gravity was involved. So, like I said, it's irrelevant. However, to talk about something in the past before this first game, it is said that at some point, a human woman was wed to the God of the Depths, and she was named the Maiden of the Depths. Now, because this human was mortal, and the God of the Depths was immortal, that would kind of make it hard for a lasting and healthy marriage. However, somehow, in a way we are not expressly told, the so-called Maiden of the Depths did something amazing. She merged the realm of the divine and the physical world. How did she do that, though? I don't know. But she did. Doing this somehow brought the God of the Depths into the physical world, something no other older god has done. Sure, we can meet the traces of Gro-Goroth or Sylvian, but we never see the whole unadulterated old god. Except for the God of the Depths. Like, here he is. Right here. This is God of the Depths. The Maiden of the Depths somehow brought the God of the Depths into the physical world. To continue with our example of gravity, that would be like bringing gravity as a concept into the real world as a god. She did this, and not only that, she merged the God of the Depths with the Dungeon of Fear and Hunger, a notoriously cruel dungeon, also merging it with the thicket in the area surrounding the dungeon, even making this thicket a sort of organ for the God of the Depths. Along with the thicket, there are other organs strewn about the dungeon as well, even so far down as the ancient city Mahabra, buried below the dungeon. Cutting them open will allow you to enter the gauntlet, which is inside the God of the Depths itself, the deepest and most in-tune part of the dungeon with the God of the Depths. This gauntlet is the closest thing to the true God of the Depths as we will see. We will see all the telltale signs of God of the Depths here. bugs, crow people, depraved guards, and an immense amount of darkness, along with the deepest and darkest darkness, but we'll get back to this embodiment of darkness later. The darkness of this dungeon corrupts, not only in a metaphorical sense, but in a very real sense now as well. As we read from Captain Rudemer's diaries, the dungeons, although horrible, were steadily getting more corrupt by the God of the Depths as time continued on, especially recently. Captain Rudemer is getting corrupted and slowly turning into the Crow Mauler, and you can see that in a video I made specifically about the Crow Mauler right here. But in this video, I described that normally if you were to just play through the game, you might think that the Crow Mauler is just a singular entity, a one-off weird creature that was corrupted by the God of the Depths. But it isn't. And you don't need some schmuck on the internet telling you that based on some obscure book or some lore somewhere buried deep in the game why the Crow Mauler isn't unique, but you can see it for yourself in the Gauntlet. There's another Crow Mauler, a double Crow Mauler. This one is not Captain Rudemer, but someone entirely different. Perhaps it was a marriage that got corrupted into a Crow Mauler. And if you're like me, this made no sense the first time you saw, because I was led to believe that Captain Rudemer was the Crow Mauler and that was that. But I believe that the God of the Depths can actually just corrupt people and things, just like Rare, the moon god. If you've played Fear and Hunger 2, you are very aware that Rare can do this. But I think it's just that old gods can do this. Corrupt. But to get back to that deep darkness we were talking about earlier, if you bring the girl to this deep darkness, something very strange happens. For the first time ever, at least that we canonically know of, an old god dies here. The old God of the Depths dies, right here, right now. However, we see the God of the Depths take a new shape. It merges with the girl to make an ascended god, the God of Fear and Hunger. Not an old god or a new god, but an ascended one. Which, if you don't know, an ascended god is a god that somehow merges with an old god, and creates something greater. Something like an old god with the influence of a new god. If you want to hear more about the God of Fear and Hunger, you can see my video on that here. However, the cliff notes are that the God of Fear and Hunger takes the role of the God of the Depths. The God of Fear and Hunger takes over the role of those who are lost and forgotten and represents human growth through pain. Let's take a look at the God of the Depths symbol though. It is this reverse R. However, when the God of the Depths merges with the girl, the symbol of the God of Fear and Hunger is two R's back to back. What do these actually represent? I don't really know. I'm sure there's some symbolism here, but I can't figure it out. Finally, let's talk about how the God of the Depths looks here. If you don't know, the look of the God of the Depths is based on this famous photo of the USS Saratoga, a sunken ship that looks very creepy, and an interesting parallel is that the design is based on a sunken ship in the depths of the ocean. Now, to talk about some theories here, this is a theory that I have thought of, and I'm not sure if someone on the internet has already said it or already debunked it for that matter, but I believe that becoming an ascended god is shown most straight up with the God of the Depths turning into the God of Fear and Hunger. That makes sense. So this theory isn't so much about the God of the Depths, but ascended gods in general. I believe that the only way an ascended god is created is by merging an old god with a human, which makes sense with the God of the Depths turning into the God of Fear and Hunger. Then you might say, what about Alll-Merr? Isn't he an ascended god? If you watch my video on Alll-Merr and my video on the overview of all the gods, you know that there is an obscure old god that is never really mentioned that much named Vitruvia, the architect of the human body. This god was displeased with Sylvian, as she fell in love with the bastardization of her original design for humans. If you read the Skin Bible of Alll-Merr in Fear and Hunger 2, you know that in the lore, there is a theory that Alll-Merr was created by Vitruvia. I believe that when Alll-Merr died, he merged with Vitruvia and ascended, and that's why we don't hear about Vitruvia anymore. And that brings me to the big part of this theory I was talking about. I believe that Logic, the god at the end of Fear and Hunger 2, is ascending, and we are witnessing another ascension. There's a lot of weird connections between Logic and Rare. When she transforms into her second form in her boss battle, there's this weird wooden structure behind her. Why? Well, if you know Rare, this is very telling of his realm. This wooden walls looks just like all the realms that he puts you into throughout Fear and Hunger 2. Why though? Well, I believe that Rare, upset with this particular tournament festival, which is not in fact being held in his name, decides to merge with Logic, creating a new ascended god. Percola even grabs you out of Rare's realm more than once. Maybe he's trying to pretend that Rare is still in control of the festival. Moon we see in the sky in Termina is just a floating space rock, not Rare, as Percola says. However, that's just a theory, and it could be completely wrong. And the God of the Depths video is just an easy way to talk about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this God of the Depths video as well as my little theory. I thank you all, and I love every single one of you.